6, the Vision Zero Advisory Committee meeting, and it's 9:30. It's a new time. If you could please call the roll to establish quorum.
At this time, I'm only asking those VZAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphone by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a VZAC representative. Nellie Chapman? Here.
Here.
Ted Goodenough?
Here.
Joan Oliva?
Krista Bros for Joan Oliva.
Joanne Scaria? Fadi Nazar?
Here.
Ryan Mugridge?
Sergeant Yoder here for Captain Muggers.
JC Beery? Here. Michael Howe? Casey Bracrun? Here. Bruce Guyton? Michael Owens?
Joyelle Shaw for Michael Owens.
Christian Santa Gonzalez?
Here.
Joel Rosales?
Here.
Jermaine Swaby?
Here.
Tim Crespo?
Here.
Clinton Williams?
Here.
Tracy Phelps? Stephanie Thoborn?
Here.
Claudette De Los Santos?
Here.
Catherine Wall? Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Staff, are there any modifications to the agenda today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we would like to remove item 3A, US 7 connector feasibility study from the agenda.
Item 3A. Oh, US 1 connector feasibility study. Okay. Do we need a motion to amend the agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay, so can I have a motion to amend the agenda?
I'll make the motion to amend the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. Christian first, and then second is Craig. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so next on the agenda is general public comments and public comments on agenda items. Instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Staff, have any general comments been received?
No, Madam Chair. Also, we need to approve the minutes.
Oh. Did I skip? Oh, I skipped. Thank you. Do we have any changes to the minutes? Did you like them? They were good. No changes to the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Ted, all motion.
Okay, Ted.
I'll second the motion.
Christian is the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that got approved. Okay, so public comments. Do we have any general comments that we received?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. So then comments from the board. We're going to go around the room. Do we have any comments for the board? Any exciting news in your communities you want to share with us? Celebrations? I don't have anything.
This is Ted, and just a reminder, if you're presenting, please make sure you describe what's on your slides. And also, I hope everyone takes a moment to remember D-Day. I've actually stood in the cemetery with 9,388 markers for people who sacrificed for you to be able to be here today. It's very heart-wrenching. That's all.
Thanks, Mr. Goodenough, for that reminder, both. I did hear, just because I was listening to NPR this morning, I heard that there was a bicyclist in Vero who was hit by law enforcement. And it was just interesting to hear how that made news, and you wonder, why did that make news and why didn't it? I mean, the person on the bicycle was okay, but well, they were brought to the hospital, so they were alive, but it was just, we don't hear a lot about those kinds of things, especially if somebody it survives a crash like that. So anyways, just stuff to think about, I guess, as we listen to the news. Okay, so the next item is the VSAC liaison report, and Valentina is going to provide an update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone. So first item on the liaison report, there's the City of Boca Raton. Congratulations to them. They were awarded $4 million for the planning and demonstration grant for their Vision Zero action plan. So from what I heard, they will be utilizing those funds to help develop their Vision Zero action plan and also for supplemental activities. So that is a really big deal. So congratulations to the City of Boca Raton for that. Next, the National Association of City Transportation Officials. We would like to again congratulate the City of Boca Raton for officially becoming a NACTO city member. So congratulations to them. This is a really big deal. From what I have heard, not many cities get accepted. It's a long process, but we do encourage everyone to go through this application because becoming a NACTO member city, you do get some resources and technical expertise from the NACTO Association. So that is something to consider. So congratulations again to the city. Next, it's the Let's Get on the Bus Challenge. If you would like to participate on this, Palm Tran is, this challenge is from June 15 for a chance to win prizes, and you can use the promo code challenge for $5 in the Paradise Pass app to get a free transit ride. So I encourage everyone to visit our website at palmtran.org/riders-challenge. Next is the National Dump the Pump Day. And for this, you can go car-free trip June 20th and use Palm Trans promo, which is Transit 2024 from June 16 to June 22nd in the Paradise Pass app to receive $5 in transit fares. Next one is the bicycle-friendly designations. Applications for this are coming up. I believe it's June 20th or 25th for communities and August 8th for universities. So you can apply at bikeleague.org/BFA. Next is the Vision 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan that is still ongoing, hopefully getting that adopted by the end of this year. So we will actually be holding a series of public workshops from June 18th to July 2nd. So we highly encourage everyone to participate. These workshops will be held all over the county. So started from North County all the way to South County. So if you would like to participate, strongly encourage you to do so and visit our website at palmbeachtpa.org/LRTP. Next is the Regional Transportation Plan, the Southeast Florida Regional Transportation Plan that is ongoing. The update is underway, and you can learn more on that and take the survey at seftc.org. Next is the 2024 Dangerous by Design report. And this report has been published by Smart Growth America, which is a nonprofit organization. And they typically, in this document, they go through the ranking of the most dangerous metro areas in the nation for pedestrians. And for this report, it was from the years of 2018 to 2022. And just to let everyone know, in 2000, this report, for the 2022 report, Florida was ranked as the #1 most dangerous state for pedestrians. In 2023, we were ranked as the 2nd most dangerous, but it's not because we got better. It's because another state got worse, which was New Mexico. So for this report, unfortunately, it looks like they didn't go through the statewide ranking, but they did rank the metros. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. We are all in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach metropolitan area. So we ranked as number 14, which is still really high. So if you would like to see that report, you can go to the website at smartgrowthamerica.org. Next is the Complete Streets Policy Action Guide. And again, Smart Growth America, they published this guide to help planners, engineers, and other practitioners to help them and just provide tips on how to develop a complete streets policy. So if you are interested, which the TPA encourages everyone to adopt a complete streets policy, you can use that as a resource to help develop your complete streets policy. Next is the US DOT Grant Navigator tool, which I know most of you are familiar with. That is a good resource, and you will be able to find a lot of the federal grants that are out there. And you can visit the website of transportation.gov/DOT-navigator. And last but not least, we encourage everyone to sign up and subscribe to our TPA newsletter. For that, you can stay informed on the latest TPA news and updates. So please visit our website at palmbeachtpa.org/newsletter to subscribe. And thank you. That concludes my liaison report.
Okay. See, Mr. Guyton has arrived. Thank you. Next item is Amendment 4 to the TPA's Transportation Improvement Program. And Andrew Euler, Deputy Director of Programs, will present this item. It's our first action item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So the two action items for you today involve the TPA's Transportation Improvement Program. This first one is for fiscal year 24 through 28. That is our current Transportation Improvement Program. So it covers fiscal year 24, next 5 years, 28, includes the federal and state funded projects within our county. This is a request from FDOT to amend one project. And so what triggers this as an amendment is that it's adding a new phase. So regardless of how much that phase costs, if it is a new phase within the TIP, it's required to go to public review and approval by the board. This only impacts the one product in the amendment. There's hundreds that are in the TIP. So you're really only voting on this one product. That product is a request by FDOT at the intersection of Congress Avenue and 10th Avenue North. What it's doing is adding a right-of-way phase, so acquisition of property. And the product is an intersection safety improvement. It includes installing additional light poles and upgrading existing lights to LED lights. It replaces existing span wire signal with a mast arm. It also includes flashing yellow arrows, and then also includes the extension of a northbound left turn lane. So construction is set for fiscal year 2028 for this project. And what's triggering the amendment today is the request to add a right-of-way phase of $361,000 in fiscal year 25. And then later on, there'll be additional right-of-way for a total of $590,000. The funding for this right-of-way is the same as the construction. It's using state funds that they are going to seek reimbursement for later on for federal highway safety program funds. For this right-of-way acquisition, they're requiring right-of-way mostly to fit the sidewalks and the signal infrastructure in the southwest, northwest, and northeast quadrants. And then they're also requiring a permanent easement for a sidewalk and transit shelter to accommodate a bus shelter at Palm Tran, which is the stop that's just south of 10th Avenue North on Congress. And that's all I have for you. Can I answer any questions?
Do we have any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Does anyone from the board have any comments or questions? I have one. How wide are the sidewalks here that you're asking for additional right of way? Are they moving the sidewalk? Sounds like, or are they widening the existing sidewalk?
I think it's widening existing. I don't believe there's additional new sidewalks. I don't see that in the description. Ruth, would you mind going back to the presentation? I'll show a sort of a design layout on the screen here. It's gonna be very difficult to comprehend, but it points out where the acquisition is occurring. So again, it's occurring on the southwest, northwest, and northeast quadrants. So from my interpretation of it, where the sidewalks are close to the intersection and they have to move poles, especially when you're going to a mast arm, it probably needs a little bit more space. So they're probably needed to acquire for that location. And then there's probably that small piece that's next to the bus stop that is required for that bus pad. But there's not like full on widening the sidewalks. It's mostly an intersection project. So they're probably just need the sidewalks to accommodate that extra space to accommodate those connections when they're moving that other infrastructure.
The other question I had was, I saw that they were adding, I mean, in the original project is to add light poles. Just want to make a comment, and I don't know what the details are, but if the light poles are like the stadium light poles, or are they pedestrian and bicycle oriented light poles, that there's a lower light at like the 10 to 12 foot level, so that, people can see, cars have their own lights. It's to see the people and for the people to see the
Mhm.
cars, so there aren't any crashes. So I just want to make that comment, since we're the Vision Zero Advisory Committee. Anyway.
Yep. From my look at it, the description, it looks like, I'm assuming it's for the roadway lighting and not pedestrian scale lighting. But I can follow up and see.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they're doing all of this work, that they could improve the environment for the pedestrian. So many times, I mean, this is million to almost $2 million. We're here to give dignity to the pedestrian and the bicycle user. We should be making sure that those kinds of improvements are done every time and be relentless about it. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. So then the next item is,
Madam Chair, is that an action item?
Action item, yes.
oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you. So good at reminding me. Okay. So can I get a motion
So move.
made by Mr. Bruce Guyton? Second, we have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Christian. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you again. Okay, so then the next item now is the Transportation Improvement Program for the 5-year funding for Palm Beach County. And Andrew Euler is the Deputy Director of Programs, will also present this item.
Thank you again. So this next action item is the upcoming Transportation Improvement Program. So we just saw our current one, fiscal year 24-28. This covers 25 through 29. This is a shortened presentation from last month where we presented this item. That provided more detail. This one's just going to be more of a summary highlight before we go to discussion. So again, it lists the upcoming federal and state funds in Palm Beach County. So as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, it is our responsibility to and our authority to approve this plan. So it has to be consistent with the state. So in that, we approve the federal and state funds on projects, but we also prioritize specific funds that the MPO, the TPA has to program. It takes time to get to this part of the process, right? You all are very familiar with that and are engaged in that throughout the process. So it starts with product development. So we have our long-range transportation plan. We're pulling products from that plan as well as from those programs, such as transportation alternatives. And back in winter, spring of 2023, we have submittals of applications. We're looking at the feasibility of projects. And then with all that information, we create a list of priority projects. And so that list of priority projects outlines to FDOT, these are our priorities with the funding that we understand are available for the TPA to prioritize. And then we give that list to them. And then they update the revenue forecasts for the state. And they also update all the cost estimates that are in the current work program in TIP. And then with any available funding after that, they'll program more priorities. So that all gets put into a draft work program for the state. And we see that draft, provide our feedback. And then after that feedback's provided, they create the final version of that work program. And that's what we have as the tip. So it's consistent with the work program. Last month, we saw the first reading, and then this month is our final reading. We'll begin operating under this come July 1st of this year. So next month. The Transportation Improvement Program is set up in different sections. The first sections you'll see are going to be the major projects of the TPA, the Local Initiatives Program, and the Transportation Alternatives Program. And then other sections within the document include the Strategic Intermodal System, which is the SIS of FDOT. It says major capacity roadways throughout the county, I-95, Turnpike, Beeline, Southern. And then there's other FDOT and local projects, and then our other modal partners, airports, railroads, and seaports. And then we have operations and maintenance listed in the tip for both roads and transit. Over the next 5 years, there's $3.63 billion of investment of federal, state, and turnpike funds within Palm Beach County. A very large chunk of that are turnpike funds. So those are toll revenues from the turnpike that are going towards turnpike expansion. So they're widening throughout all of Palm Beach County. You're going to see those, and I provided some more detail last presentation, but you're going to see those over the next few years start construction through different segments throughout the county. There's also other major interchange improvements happening on I-95 using federal and state funds. Outside of the SIS capacity program, there's $367 million in investment for TPA priorities. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then going down the list is those other sections we've talked about, but operations and maintenance, which tends to start going more towards local funds instead of just federal and state. And so when it comes to TPA priorities, there's $367 million in investment. A large chunk of that is $210 million towards roadway capacity products that includes pedestrian bicycle facilities. These are those major roadway products that we have fully funded in the TIP coming up. That includes State Road 7 widening and extension. It includes the remainder of the Atlantic Avenue widening. Again, both of those include those ped bike facilities with that. And then the standalone products that are complete streets, pedestrian bicycle facilities, we have roughly $90 million towards those. So a lot of the products that are submitted, obviously through the TA program, but also our local initiatives projects. And then some of our state roads are geared towards these complete streets improvements. Outside of that, we have other priorities of transit vehicles and shelters. So that includes more bus stops for Palm Tran, enhanced bus stops at certain locations for Palm Tran, signal priority for Palm Tran. It also includes tri-rail rail cars. So lots of items in there for transit vehicles and shelters. And then we have money towards lighting and then intersection and traffic signal improvements. I looked at the number the other day for total number of improved or new best pedestrian and bicycle facilities in the program. And it looks like it's going to be around 52 miles of TPA priorities for ped bike facilities program in the next 5 years. This is my final slide. This is going to the final adoption at the governing board. The review period was over 2 months, April 24th. It's going to end on June 20th at that final adoption. We presented last month in May to the committees and to the board. Our final presentation is here. And then since last month, what's really changed in the document, we added additional project details when we got them from the partners. We also included more local products for reference. So we try to include all the 5-year road program projects from the county for reference that are all paid with local funds. And then upcoming, we're going to have a lot of this information more available with a consultant on a dashboard. So hopefully you can use that in the future to hone down in your jurisdictions or your homes to see all the projects and track it that way. So that's all I have for you, and I can take any questions.
Are there any public comments first?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. I see Fadi. Or you want to start, Fadi?
Yeah, sure. Um, You know, for the budget that you have, I think there is about 12 million for intersection improvements. 12 million for intersection improvements. What that include in general?
Sure, sure. So both the county and a lot of these are mostly funded for the design. Because I think construction hasn't gone for a lot of these, but both the county and Boca Raton have submitted multiple rounds of intersection improvements. And so if I were to look real quickly, a lot of them are going to be in the major products list, or they're going to be in the local initiatives list, because those are the ones that typically have the funding. So as I look through here for intersections, there's design funds for Boca Raton at Federal Highway and Spanish River Boulevard. Looks like the county has a lot of them at Atlantic, Belvedere, Forest Hill. All those are design, a lot of US 1 locations. So these are all sections. If you have the table, it's 20-1, 20-2, 20-4, 20-3. So, and they're all mostly design, it looks like. So nothing, let's see if I can find a.
Would that
Construction.
include the railroad crossing improvements?
I don't believe so. If you're referring to ones that are more recent that the county applied for,
Yes.
I'll have to look for you, but I don't believe those are in the plan yet. If that's gone through and been vetted yet and programmed.
Okay, my other question is more general. You know, with kind of autonomous driving improving faster than we expect, is there some kind of a study or fund to review our, you know, signs, pavement, marking, work zone, just to make it more compatible? I think this probably would be more like a short term, and the long term or medium term would be about those detecting, you know, kind of vehicle to pedestrian to signals communication. Is TPA kind of following up on this communication and how we can detect pedestrian and inform cars at the same time?
So Fadi, if I can restate what you're asking if the TPA has studied that sort of connected technology for pedestrian to
program.
vehicle infrastructure?
Program study, first of all, to evaluate if our signing, marking, work zone, whatever, consistent with the driverless, the new technologies in cars. And second, kind of medium term, for all these detection equipment, you know, communication between signal, whether there's a pedestrian there, and so forth, communicate just to improve the safety overall, using technology to improve safety.
Okay, maybe we could talk about that and touch base on that afterwards. We haven't explored that, but it sounds like you're talking about, is the inventory out there for the painting, the striping, whatever else is needed and necessary for autonomous vehicles or connected vehicles, if the infrastructure is out there to support that, both short-term and long-term. And
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
think
mean-
that's something we can discuss, but there's no studies right now or anything like that for that.
Jermaine?
Yes, good morning. So pretty much the statement comes from something I've pretty much mentioned before. I know that we are, from my understanding, we're gonna have work on 441, and as you know, it may affect the waterway, and therefore City of West Palm Beach, you know, we have an issue with that. So that's it.
Okay. Anybody else? I had a question. So, and of course, it's related to the major projects on related to Tri-Rail. And it says West Palm to Jupiter. And the significant funding change to
Mhm.
have to do the study.
Mhm.
And I always recalled this being pushed out. It's like every time somebody asks me, is Tri-Rail coming? I always say, yeah, in 5 years. And that was like 15 years ago.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see that in 2025, we're actually moving. Is
Mhm.
that the significant change?
So, right, so the significant change on there is it's the funding amount's still the same there. We changed it from saying PD&E to planning. So history of this project, and this is the trial extension from West Palm Beach to Jupiter along the FEC. We've always had it about 3 years out for this PD&E, and then it keeps getting pushed. And the reason for that is a few, but the main concern is, not concern, but the main thing is that we don't have operations and maintenance to move forward to actually operate the facility, right? So FDOT will not move forward with a PD&E. FTA won't allow that either if you don't have the operation and maintenance in place to run that service afterwards. So what this is doing is it's sort of like some, preliminary PD&E work. So FDOT is going to move forward with doing some study. So this money is actually going to be lumped up into a Broward and Palm Beach contract. That's about $4 million, but about 1350 of it is going to be towards Palm Beach County. And that's the 1350 you see there. And it's going to be more about sort of analyzing the sites along there and potential site impacts, TOD. Brian Richards, is there anything else you want me to add to that? Okay. So that's sort of what that's going to entail. They're already out there trying to select a consultant for this work. Now that's just for the overall contract. There's still work orders within that contract. So we're going to be working with them on those work orders to ensure that it's sort of moving the needle on this PD&E and getting trial extension north. So it's not a full-on PD&E. It's trying to figure out what steps can we move forward with to start getting there. Oh, okay. And Brian Rush is stating that there's going to be a September presentation to the governing board regarding this, regarding the rail studies. So update on rail studies in September.
Can you let us know when that happens? Just so maybe it can be in one of Valentina's, because I think that, as this committee, we're about mobility. This is huge to get service from the north. And then if we get to the north, then maybe we can get it even further to the north, because we have so many people, especially with our housing crisis, that need this type of transportation in order to go to jobs, and like places like Jupiter and Boca. I mean, we demand services that need people, and it's putting a real damper on our streets because we don't have affordable housing. So everybody comes in from the roads and the highways, and then it just causes more congestion, and it's just cyclical because we don't have public transit available. So this would be huge for a lot of us. So anyways, I'm be curious to see and how this supports and move forward. And now that we have Brightline, a lot of the infrastructure is there. So just trying to stay on top of that for us as a group so we can move forward together. Is there anybody else that wants it? Mr. Good Enough?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just a question on Tri-Rail. Are they at least trying to make things more accessible? I went with a mobility and orientation trainer back, I think it was 2019, and I could not, and none of my blind friends could not access the train. There was a place where you can go to get a discounted ticket if you have a disability. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the little pillars that you have to tap your ticket on to access the availability. Are they in consideration of going to Jupiter? Are they going to make it more accessible for persons with disabilities? Is that in that study?
Sure. I'm going to call Brian Rusha to provide more of a response to that.
Brian Rusher, Deputy of Multimodal. So Ted, thank you for bringing up that point. We actually have a study to look at bicycle access for the stations in Palm Beach County, but based on your comments, I'll reach out to SFRTA and see if we can expand that scope of work to include some accessibility elements as well. So if anything, we'll follow up with you directly and let you know what we come up with for next fiscal year and looking at that closer. If we can learn kind of some of those notes and we can get kind of a comprehensive look, maybe go to, I know you've been kind enough to volunteer your time after this meeting to go and walk Clematis Street with Valentina. I'd hate to ask you for more of your time to go to the station, but Executive Director Deck has had a very strong focus on the customer experience. And I'm sure that he'd be willing to hear out your concerns. So, well, we might ask you again for your time and your assistance, but it'd benefit all of the residents of Palm Beach County if you could. So thank you.
I'd be glad to spend any time helping to improve the access to public transportation. I will say the Palm Tran Connection has made 100% improvement in their quality of transportation. I get here very quickly now. I just want to be able to help everyone in our county to be able to access what is considered public transportation.
Thank you, Ted.
Okay, is there any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion to recommend adoption of the FY 2025 through 2029 tip.
Okay, motion by Christian. Do I have a second? Craig has the second. All those in favor say.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was Bruce, yeah.
Oh, that was Bruce.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, that was Bruce who seconded. Is that deep voice I heard? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed?
Yes.
West Palm Beach, Jermaine is the nay, okay? All right, so the next item are information items. Oh, wait, 3A is not going, right? So we have 3B is bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements for State Road A1A and FDOT. Chris McCurdy.
That's me. Good morning. Thank you for
Welcome.
having me. My name is Chris McCurdy. I'm a project manager in the design office at FDOT, and today I'm here to talk to you about what we're doing as a District 4 on A1A in Palm Beach County, what pedestrian and bicycle efforts we're making. So first slide is our agenda, and this is broken down into three major components. The first one is immediate safety improvements, and that's what we're doing in the short term. That's going to be things that are going to be implemented within the next 6 months. The second item is going to be talking about, we're doing a feasibility study related to safety, the whole length of the county on A1A. So I'm going to share with you what components that study includes and what the timeline is for that study. The third major item is RRR projects. So that's resurfacing projects in our 5-year work program that are on A1A and what bicycle and pedestrian improvements those projects include. So below number 3 are the 7 resurfacing projects that I'm going to be talking about. Okay, first item is immediate safety improvements. And what that means is these projects will be done by our traffic operations office. And these projects are typically like a low dollar, we can do it now kind of solution. It doesn't require a great lift as far as design or construction. It's things we can do now. So 2 things we're doing are pavement markings and signage. The picture in the upper right-hand corner is a picture of a Sharrow. And the Sharrow markings are put on the pavement every 250 feet on roads that are 20 or 35 miles per hour or less posted speed. And what the intent of these Sharrow markings is to convey to the traveling public, the motorists and the bicyclists, that the bicyclist has the ability to command that lane. They can occupy the full lane. They don't have to ride off to the side. Below the pavement marking is the Share the Road signs. That's the second treatment we're doing. And that is just as the traveling public is going by to remind them that bicyclists have a right to be there. So there's a list on the table on the left of the cities that these treatments are being implemented in. One is Delray Beach, Gulfstream, Boynton Beach, Briny Breezes, Ocean Ridge, Manalapan, and Palm Beach. So all but 2 of them are going to be installing the share of the road signs. And the sharrows will be installed in Gulfstream and Manalapan. So on the next slide, I'm going to have a graphic that kind of shows you where each of these treatments is going to be. And again, these should be installed within the next 6 months. The work order is in progress. Once the work order is issued, it takes 60 to 90 days for the contractor to have these in place. And so it covers quite a distance within Palm Beach County. One question came up yesterday is why is there a gap on the north end? And that is because sharrows have already been implemented at that location. So there'll be continuous either signage or sharrows put in per the map on this slide. And off to the right, it says where we're doing the sharrows and where we're putting the signage. The next item is the feasibility study. So this feasibility study was kicked off at the end of March. And it has several components to it. The first one is review of existing plans, data, and studies. So that's going to be looking at the LRTP. That's going to be looking at FDOT's master bicycle and pedestrian plan. That's going to be looking at TPA Vision Zero documents, things such as that. Next is going to be data collection and assessment. The data collection and assessment is going to be starting with a desktop safety review, doing reviews on Google Earth. Then once that is done, everyone on the team goes out in the field, drive the whole project and get out at key locations to, really evaluate what's out there and what can be done. Moving on, it'll be determining bicycle and pedestrian needs and goals, and that's throughout the corridor, but some specific areas need more tailored treatments, and those areas will be identified. The following step will be identify potential short-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies. So the short-term would be things we can get out there in the next 6 months and implement. The midterm and the long-term are going to be bigger lift items. They're requiring more of a design effort, and they're going to be more expensive and take more time in construction. So once we identify the midterm and long-term improvements, we have to figure out how we're going to fund them and how we're going to get them built. How is that going to be incorporated into our 5-year work program? Are there projects coming through that those can be rolled into, or do they need to be a separate project? The next step would be developing planning level concepts and cost estimates, followed by a summary and recommendations. So the next slide is going to be a timeline of where we're at. So we are pretty much at the end of the data collection and studies review, and we're getting out in the field. Kittleson is our consultant doing this task work order, doing this feasibility study. We're working with Kittleson. So we're out there getting in the field now, and we're working on developing what the needs and goals are. So this is a 9-month phase. This is going to take 9 months before we get the final product of this. However, it's written such that as data comes in, we're going to be able to get that in real time. Although the final report won't be in until the end of October, we're getting pieces as it comes in, as it becomes available. So we're hoping to be able to start short-term improvements in the near future. Okay, now we're moving on. Oh, these are the potential countermeasures that could result from the evaluations. So ideas would be curb extensions to reduce pedestrian crossing distances and reduce vehicle turning speeds, upgrade pedestrian lighting at crosswalks, widen shoulders where feasible to mark the shoulders for bike lanes. We need 5 feet of paved shoulder in order to put a pavement marking per our standards to mark the shoulders for bikes. So in areas that we have the right of way and we can widen to 5 feet, 8 feet is optimal. 5 feet is the minimum to mark the shoulders for bicycles. Install sharrow pavement markings is another treatment. Replace worn and faded detectable warning surfaces at crosswalk locations. Those are those typically yellow mats you see with the domes on them. So if they have become deficient, we'll go ahead and replace those. Install high emphasis crosswalks at signalized intersections. The high emphasis have both the longitudinal stripes and the transverse stripes, and those are typically installed at the signalized intersections. And at non-signalized intersections, we're going to be restriping crosswalks to improve visibility at locations where it needs to be done. Now I'm going to talk about the 7 projects, the 7 resurfacing projects in our 5-year work program. This is a graphic, a map that kind of shows where these projects are. If you look at the legend on the right, those are the project ID numbers, and they're in numerical order, starting with least going to greatest. Next to the project number is a color, and on the map, the color corresponds to that project number. So you can kind of see we're doing projects throughout the county, starting in Boca, going to North Palm Beach, all along A1A. So the first project I'm going to talk about is in the city of Boca Raton, and it goes from Southeast 31st Street to south of Grand Court. This is Henry Okina's project. And the improvements we're doing as far as bicycles and pedestrians, we're going to be resurfacing the roadway as we would with any resurfacing project, but we're also resurfacing the existing shared use path. We're reducing the existing 12-foot travel lanes to 11 feet so that we can put in a 6-foot buffer bicycle lane. So we're taking a foot from the lane and we're going to dedicate it to the bicycle lane. Install Sharrow pavement markings on the bridge. So there's a pinch point at the bridge where we currently can't fit both travel lanes and mark the shoulders for bicycles, and the bridge will have Sharrow pavement markings. The project will also be filling in any sidewalk gaps and putting additional signage at mid-block crossings. All right, the next project, this is Brad Salisbury's project. This project is in Highland Beach, and it goes from south of Grand Court to south of Linton Boulevard. Okay, and here's kind of a layout of where this project is. And what this project includes is widening to provide the 5-foot bike lanes, because again, you need 5 feet of paved shoulder to be able to put that pavement marking on there. Improve drainage, which will reduce ponding not only on the travel lanes, but also the bike lanes. Upgrade asphalt paths to meet ADA standards, so to meet grades and geometrics for the asphalt path. Update mid-block pedestrian crossings to the latest standards, and add no passing zone marking signage at areas of concern. Okay, the next project is in Delray Beach, and it goes from Linton Boulevard to East Atlantic Avenue. The project manager is Hyan Wu. All right, there are existing bicycle lanes within this project, and those are existing to remain. We're going to be updating pedestrian lighting at several locations and pedestrian signal features. We're also going to be upgrading 4 mid-block crossings with rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And if you're not familiar with what those are, there's an orange, yellow diamond-shaped sign, and below that there's a little rectangular lights that are activated by push button. So that's another signal to the motorist that there's something going on here. The lights are flashing, and it gets their attention that they should be aware that something's going on, and alerted to the crosswalk location. Okay, moving north, this is in Palm Beach and Lake Worth Beach. This is from Lake Avenue to North Ibis Way. The project manager is Vandana Nagel. And here's kind of a map of what the limits of the project are. Okay, this project is going to be increasing the sidewalk width. The existing sidewalk width is 5 feet. We're increasing to 6 feet. Increasing the paved shoulder width from 3 to 5, again, so we can mark it for bicycles. And installing 2 mid-block pedestrian crossings. One of these mid-blocks is going to be at Raymond Floyd Golf Course, and the other one will be at Phillips Ocean Park. The next project is within the town of Palm Beach. This is a second project by Vandana Nagel, and this is from north of Ibis Way to north of Emerald Beach Way. And what this project is incorporating is providing 5-foot bicycle lanes where feasible, and at locations where we don't have the right of way to provide the 5-foot bicycle lanes, we're going to be marking the pavement, the travel lanes with Sharrow pavement markings. Installing the actuated flashing beacons with additional signage before Sloan's Curve, Ed Winder's Curve, and also putting speed reduction signs ahead before those curves. Okay, we're still in the town of Palm Beach. This is a project by Tuck Lee, and it extends from Emerald Beach Way to south of Royal Palm Way. And we're going to be installing sharrow pavement markings at this location throughout the project limits, replacing broken sidewalks and updating lighting at the intersections to meet current criteria. And we have one more project, and that's in the town of North Palm Beach. And it is John D. MacArthur Park entrance to Portage Landing North. And the project manager is Jeffrey Robert. We'll be resurfacing the pavement, and we're doing minor widening. And I want to say that the widening will not be within the limits of the park. It'll be outside the limits of the park. So minor widening and restriping to put in 8-foot designated bike lanes. So we have the right of way and the ability to install 8-foot designated bicycle lanes within this project. We will be upgrading lighting at signalized intersections and upgrading pedestrian signalization at intersections. And the last slide is a summary slide. So what we're striving for is more consistency in the corridor. And that includes 11-foot to 12-foot travel lanes throughout the corridor, throughout the county, to improve bike accommodations on A1A, to properly sign 5 to 7-foot marked bicycle lanes, and provide sidewalks on both sides of the road. On the west side, 6 to 12-foot is our goal. And on the east side, 6-foot sidewalks. So questions for me?
Before we do that, are there any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, so Valentina's,
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. We do actually have a public comment we received on through email.
okay.
I'm going to read it. It's from Mark Horning. He's representing Florida Share the Road Coalition. I've been cycling on A1A for 23 years. The work suggested by FDOT to install sharrows and other short-term improvements is helpful. Thank you for this team for making these improvements as soon as possible. I'd like to take the opportunity to ask that FDOT please consider additional immediate improvements, including sharrows approaching both sides of the Boca Inlet Bridge, signage in support of the sharrows and applicable or allowable, anti-slip grates such as those installed on the Hillsborough Inlet Bridge. Thank you. Please do not hesitate to reach out for additional information if you need it.
Okay, thank you. We have an internal meeting to discuss this specific project. We've had a lot of questions about this project. So on June 18th, I would be able to provide more information. But I will coordinate internally in the department and get an answer back to you.
Okay, great. So we'll go to the Valentina. You want to?
Thank you for the presentation. Great presentation. Quick question for slide 18, which is the Linton. We can pull up the slide. It's for the Delray Beach improvements between Linton Boulevard to East Atlantic Avenue. So slide 18, if you go back. Yeah, so there's going to be an upgrade of pedestrian signal features for ADA compliance. So I was just curious what kind of signal or pedestrian signal improvements there would be. Was there any consideration for APS and also leading pedestrian intervals at that
So
location?
I don't know the specific project, but that would be updating to countdown timers at the push buttons.
Okay,
So
all right, thank you.
I will have to follow up with the project manager, but that is my speculation. It's to upgrade to countdowns.
Mr. Goodenough?
You spoke a lot about crosswalks. Has anyone considered putting borders on crosswalks? Because my guide dog, now retired, she could tell if something was painted and she knew, oh, we got to go across here. But my white cane, it doesn't see paint. And so if a border was put in on the crosswalk, just something that's raised maybe 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch on both sides so that as I sweep my cane, it goes and I know that I haven't left the actual crosswalk. Is that being considered at all or?
I haven't
just-
heard of that treatment before. Thermoplastic does have a small difference in elevation, but I can't remember off the top of my head how thick it is, and I haven't seen that, but I can look into that. Have you heard of that used at any other location?
No, it's actually when Boynton Beach was, they invited me to come down and asked, what can we do? And there are some detectable warning strips that have strips that go in the direction you're supposed to cross. But one of the things that I've found, having used a white cane for a very long time, is that cars tend to go across the crosswalk and a person who can't see doesn't know if they've left the crosswalk or a car has intruded on it. And a border on both sides would make it so that the person who's crossing using a cane knows that, oh, wait, I didn't leave it. And that driver has blocked their path basically. And now I know that I have to use the car to go around and get to the other side and touch the car rather than just walking across. Just something to make it easier for people using a white cane.
Okay, I will look and see. So I don't think that there's anything currently on our approved products list for that. That doesn't mean it can't be added. So I will look into that.
Thank you.
And I think what Ted was referring to was the tactile direction indicators. They have been, I haven't seen those currently being used in the United States along crosswalks. However, I have seen it in other countries. But for tactile direction indicators, they have been implemented across the United States. Unfortunately, there's no national guidance for the use of tactile direction indicators. They're not in PROGWAG or the MUTCD, unfortunately. But agencies have been using those. So that is something to be considered for consideration.
Thank you.
Yep.
So Florida could set the standard possibly, or maybe our county. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Mr. Guyton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you go back to the very first project that was displayed on the PowerPoint, the very first project?
The one in Boca Raton?
The one that referenced a 6-foot buffer. That divided the bicycle lane.
Okay,
Right
that's
there.
a slide. Okay.
The second bullet point reference a 6-foot buffer. And my question is, what type of, is that a physical buffer?
It's an extra stripe on the road. So they're separated 8 inches apart and it's a second stripe.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Good question.
Fadi.
Thanks for the presentation. I have a question for the same location between Linton and Atlantic. I know you proposing 4 new rapid flashers.
Mhm.
I would appreciate if, the OT will share with the county whether you follow your procedure or had any variance to approving those locations.
So you're asking what is our procedure to,
Well, I know your procedure. I just want to know, did you have any variance? Did you implement them or there's a number of required of pedestrian per
right?
hour
So I think
with-
the new guidance is it has to be lower than 45 mile per hour speed limit. I can't remember if it's 40 or 35 off the top of my head that we can install those.
I mean, I just want to, just share the procedure that you use.
Okay, yep,
Uh,
understood.
I mean, basically for us, we update our guidelines every couple of years. And we want to know if there is a way of implementing variances when we think something is needed. So whatever procedure you use to approve those four, we'd appreciate sharing it with us.
Okay, so I'm not sure of the procedure exactly, but our guidance is the traffic engineering manual. That's where our go-to guide for this information, but I will follow up.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, I have a couple of questions. One, I'll start with a comment. Very nice to see, I concur with the public comment. It's very nice to see DOT working to do improvements in a highly pedestrian bicycle corridor along A1A. This is where everyone comes. So thank you for coming and sharing all this with us. One thing that would be, a couple things that I think that would be helpful is, I appreciate the very general comments about the summaries, but I like it when you did like the slide 16, when you provide the road sections to just show us a little bit of an example of the typical, because it helps us understand a little bit better what's happening. And then we can go on, and kind of, unfortunately, I don't leave Jupiter very much, but to come here I do. But to see this, and we have our own section of A1A, so we understand the constraints. So it's very helpful for us to see, especially with someone like DOT, with what you're doing, and if you can do it, then we certainly can as a local government. So like to share those kinds of things with us is like really valuable for us to spread that knowledge
Okay.
to our local municipalities. And another thing, just wondering what DOT does, and maybe it's not DOT, maybe it's the local municipalities, but what are you guys doing in order to like study shade, usability? I mean, it's great to have these spaces, but many times you have these really nice facilities, but it's so hot and nobody wants to go out and use them. So, and then thinking about that, and the reason why I bring this up is like if you capture that understanding of shade and usability, then you may plan for it. And the ability after DOT's done and a municipality come back in and say, well, we want to put in palms or, sea grapes or something, a structure, something so that we have room. So just that, and I know, DOT only spends those, 5% or whatever it is as part of their projects, but that's something that each of the, us as a group could go back and say, oh yeah, well, they thought of it. We can pay for it. Because I know, you guys, it's not usually in your budget, but it would be really helpful if you could plan for it or do studies for it.
So currently in the Florida Design Manual and the shared use path, that's part of the design strategy, is to see what existing shade is available and place the shared use path, considering how we can take the most advantage of shade, whether that's from buildings or that's from existing vegetation. And you're right. So we don't usually incorporate vegetation into our projects because there's a warranty period with vegetation. It gets a little bit complicated. So those are go after projects usually.
Yeah.
Not included in something like a resurfacing project, but we do consider that in our design manual. And I agree, it's very hot and a little shade does
Yeah.
help.
It's
And
not
also
getting any cooler either.
pedestrian feet. So the goal is to get the pedestrians as far away from the travel lanes as possible. So our priority is to get pedestrian facilities as close to the right-of-way line as possible. That's how we try to design. We do consider shade and separating the pedestrians from the vehicular traffic.
So, okay, great. That sounds good. And then, it would be, unfortunately, you haven't done this in Jupiter yet, but I think we own part of the roads and the county does, so you're not going to do it for us, but, sharing that is great. On number 16, oh yeah, you're here. So one question I had was, is parking on the side of the road? Is that why it's, why it's got is there curbing on the side of it? I
I
mean,
believe that's flush shoulder throughout the lengths of the project. So are you asking what is beyond the marked bicycle lanes?
well, it's multi-tiered. What I'm asking is, one is I was trying to, because along our A1A section, we have designated parking, but I'm just wondering what the ability for, say, because this seems, it's 100 feet of right of way, but it's mostly for drainage on both sides, which is great. We need that. But then we've got the lane in the two travel lanes with a no pass for part of it. And I'm just wondering about like bicyclists and, the ability of going over that lane or cars that might veer into the bicycle lane in this section. So I'm just kind of thinking if it's just a shoulder, there's no curbing. So that was one of my questions.
And that's the one with the typical section we had shown in Highland Beach?
Yeah,
Go back to
16.
that slide, please.
16.
Okay, so the way this is what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, so our drainage on flush shoulder roadways, our drainage is by swales. And if you look under the low point of that swale, you're gonna see this aggregate, and we're trying to improve drainage there. We call it a burrito. That's probably not a good technical term, but it's aggregate wrapped in fabric so that it doesn't clog up the aggregate quickly. So we're regrading the swales, we're raising the road, correcting the cross slope, and we're improving drainage. So it's not designed for parking, or for bicyclists to use, because it is going to be sodded, and it's to maximize the drainage because there are some flooding issues in that area.
And then the existing asphalt path, you've got 100 feet of right of way. I was just wondering if that has an opportunity to be like a shared use path since it's close to the edge of the right of way. And then we are in Jupiter, we're using True Grid in places to maximize, usability of it, but while also providing some drainage. And I didn't know if DOT's using any of that to help, complementary uses like on a shared use
Are you
path.
talking about pervious pavement or?
Well, it's actually like it's a honeycomb plastic thing where you have layers of aggregate of different sizes. And then at the top layer, you can even put the rocks go through it, but it holds everything in place. So it's stable. And then there are even opportunities where you can park on it because they have little buttons where they could make parking
Are
striping.
you saying that the surface, is it flat?
Yeah.
Is it like a pavement?
It's not a pavement, it's rock.
Right, so we can't do that. I'm not sure how that would perform in the weather, but we have to have our surfaces, they can't get muddy, they can't be slippery. Like there's certain criteria as far as what friction and how smooth it has to be and what slope it has to be at. So I'm not sure that that would meet our standards from that standpoint.
For a shared use path?
Right, so our typical is to use, it's called super pave, an inch of super pave on top of a certain amount of aggregate.
Okay.
So we have an inch pavement on top of aggregate for our shared use path. And
So you don't use any rock on shared, like stabilized rock?
No.
Okay. Maybe you should.
Well, again, it has to be ADA compliant at all times, and that's why we don't do it. So that's
Yeah.
why we use an actual pavement.
Yeah, there's like aggregate I've seen where they actually have, they put some sort of additive that it holds it, so it doesn't move.
Yeah,
So-
we don't have that in our current standard. It's a fantastic idea, as long as we could, again, stay ADA compliant at all
Yeah.
times and meet all the other design
We
requirements.
could put in those bumpers Mr. Goodenough wants. So anyways, that was just one. And then the other page on specifics, this is why I like this specific roadway stuff. On page, I can't read it, 28, it's related to the near MacArthur State Park. This current project aims to provide 11-foot to 12-foot wide travel lanes. So you're increasing travel lanes.
We are widening to mark the bicycle. So until very recently, it was required on a 2-lane, 2-way to have 12-foot travel lanes. the most recent FDM, actually, I think it was after the most recent FDM. In the last couple of months, they've updated the information, and depending on the speed, you can go down as little as 10-foot travel lanes. 11 is preferred. So the 2-lane, 2-way traditionally has required 12-foot travel lanes, and that would be by default what we prefer. Where we have the ability to widen, the preference would be to have the 12-foot travel lanes and the 8-foot buffered bike lanes, but we are providing the 8-foot everywhere outside the park.
So here's just a thought, since we're the Vision Zero Advisory Committee, instead of increasing the travel lane, which as many of us know, increases speed, because if you design it that way, people will go faster. Instead of increasing it, save some money, put in a buffered bike lane and keep them at 11 or even go down to 10. Make people, this is a beautiful part of MacArthur State Park. Slow down, enjoy the view, and go a little slower so people can come out from, Riviera Beach and the gardens and use this and slow down the traffic and have them go a little bit slower, because that's what I think we should be doing. And that's why I like to see the details, the sections a little bit more. I appreciate everything you have done here and your team. This is great stuff. That's my only real complaint. Making things wider and faster is not what we're about. We need to slow it down.
So I see your point, and I completely agree. Side friction coming in from the side is going to slow the traffic down, in my opinion, better than narrowing the lanes, because if you have the narrow lanes and someone has to swerve, they're going to be swerving into the bike lane. So if you have the wider lane on the 2-lane, 2-way, if the vehicle needs to divert, they're not diverting. They have a little bit more wiggle room in their lane. But I understand what you're saying. So yes, the narrow lanes when you have side friction, it does make people want to go slower. But if you have wide open on the sides, that might not necessarily be the result.
Add some street trees, slow them down, palms. Anyways, thank you so much.
You're
This was
welcome.
very, very helpful. I like to see what you guys can do so we can copy you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, so the next item is the Vision Zero Action Plan status update, and Valentina will, pedestrian bicycle coordinator, will present this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So for today's presentation, I will be providing with you all an overview of the status of our Vision Zero Action Plan. And this status report is already up on our website at palmbeachtpa.org/Vision Zero. And it's also included in today's backup agenda if you have not seen it yet. So a quick overview of our Vision Zero Action Plan. It was originally first adopted back in 2019, and then it was updated in 2021. If you have not seen it yet, please, I encourage you to read the plan, because this is what this committee is all about. The QR code is displayed on the screen, or you can visit our website at palmbeachtpa.org/Vision Zero. So this plan, it's all about with having the goal of trying to eliminate all of the traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries. And within that plan, we have outlined several strategies and actions to get to that Vision Zero goal. So the 3 main actions that we have is policy-related actions, funding-related actions, and culture-related actions. So on the screen, I'm displaying all of the actions that we have accomplished to date. The very first one is action 1.1, which is to produce a Vision Zero progress report. So that is what I am doing today, providing a presentation to you all on the progress for a Vision Zero action plan. And we do this every year, typically June of every year, to provide progress on the actions that we've completed thus far and the actions that we have currently in progress. Next action is 1.2, which is safety changes in TPA legislation and policy positions. The TPA is an active member in the Florida Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council, also known as the MPOAC. And we attend these meetings on a quarterly basis, where we provide input on any legislation and policy positions. The next action is action 2.1, which is to work with the signal maintaining agencies for safety improvements. So signal maintaining agencies, the city of Boca Raton and Palm Beach County, we have been and continue to work collaboratively with them to try and provide those safety improvements for pedestrians and bicyclists, or most vulnerable road users. And to give you all an example, last year, we received a public comment to provide leading pedestrian intervals at the intersection of Southern Boulevard and Parker Avenue, which is in the city of West Palm Beach. And Palm Beach County did that. They installed the leading pedestrian intervals. So if you have not seen how a leading pedestrian interval, also known as an LPI, if you have not seen how an LPI functions, you can do so if you're walking along Southern Boulevard and Parker Avenue. So that is one of the actions that we did for that item. Next one is action 3.1, which is to provide reviews of fatal pedestrian and bicycle crash reports. So as you all know, we have been providing those reports on a quarterly basis. I believe we started this back in 2021. And originally, when we first started it, we were only providing those reports for pedestrians and bicyclists fatalities. But then sometime in 2022, like mid to late 2022, we decided to better align with our Vision Zero action plan, which calls to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. So we included that in our pedestrian bicycle quarterly crash reports. And we have been, providing those to the committees and the board. But now, really exciting for this new fiscal year, we will be moving into a new progress for doing our reports. So instead of having a static report, we will be creating a crash dashboard where we will be including all of those crash statistics and graphics and all of that data, and it's going to be public facing, so everyone will have access to it. Next action is action 3.4, which is to host an annual Vision Zero workshop. If you attended in April 4th, the TPA hosted a Safe Streets and Roads for All workshop in honor of Vision Zero. And for this workshop, if you didn't get the chance to attend, we essentially gathered all of the potential applicants for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant and all of the grant awardees to try and get everyone together to share lessons learned and have our partners provide presentations on their lessons learned and how we can all work collaboratively to move forward for Vision Zero and reach our Vision Zero goal. The next action is action 3.5, which is to host and participate in Vision Zero safety events. The TPA participates in numerous safety events throughout the year. One example that I will provide is I'm actually showing on the bottom left-hand corner where the TPA collaborated with the Lake Worth Beach CRA, Safe Kids Palm Beach County, and FDOT for a bicycle safety event in honor of Florida Bicycle Month. And we provided free helmets and bicycle safety materials to a traditionally underserved area in the city of Lake Worth Beach. So on the screen now, I am showing all of the actions that are currently in progress. So the first one is action 1.3, which is target speed for high crash corridors. Really exciting again. The TPA is currently working on a speed management study where we will be analyzing all of our high injury network roads and identifying the appropriate target speeds and coming up with strategies and potential countermeasures to try and reduce those speeds. So that is very exciting, and the committee, as well as our other committees and the board, will be seeing presentations on this work order throughout the next couple of months. The next action is action 1.4, which is to display safety analysis for TIP projects. We are working on that. We are hopefully trying to get a consultant to help us with that effort in this new fiscal year. The next action is action 1.5, which is to work with the school district to update transportation curriculums. We are always working collaboratively with the school districts, to try and get that. But also the TPA attends the back to school events that the school district hosts in August of every year. We do tabling at that event, and we provide pedestrian and bicycle curriculums and try to encourage the physical education teachers that attend those back to school trainings to try and get them to incorporate it in their programs. Next one is action 2.2, which is to evaluate TPA funded projects. So as you all know, the TPA has funding programs. So the purpose of this action is to try and analyze the projects that have already been completed by the projects that we funded to see the health benefits, economical benefits, and try and see if there were any crash reductions from the implementation of those complete streets improvements. So say, for example, a bicycle facility, pedestrian facility, so on and so forth. Next action is action 3.2, which is to include typical section attributes in federal aid eligible roads. We are also working on that and hopefully trying to get a consultant for this new fiscal year to help us with that effort. And the last action is action 3.3, which is to implement Vision Zero media and public education campaign. In 2022, the TPA did complete a Vision Zero social media toolkit that is up on our website at palmbeachtpa.org/Vision Zero. And I highly encourage everyone to look at that document because it's a really good resource. It has some social media tags that you are welcome to use. It also has some templates for any press releases, and also has some speaking points in the case that you get asked about Vision Zero and you're not sure what to say. There's some speaking points for that. Also in that toolkit, we have included a pledge, a safety pledge, which is the crash, not accident, which most of you have already seen and took the pledge. Thank you so much for doing that. And you are welcome to do it again. So for really the initiative for this is to try and change the culture around the words that we are utilizing when we are describing a collision. So our culture, unfortunately, when we describe a collision, we are using the word of accident. So someone got in a car accident. Well, Vision Zero is all about trying to change the culture and trying to be more careful the words that we're using to describe these things to not imply that a car crash is inevitable. So by changing our words and using a crash, we are being more proactive about how we are seeing these crashes, and Vision Zero is about, working with engineering strategies, enforcement, and all of that. So that is one of the things that we have done. And for a public education campaign, we are also working on that in this coming fiscal years to come. And lastly, next steps. So as I have mentioned, we will be working on this crash dashboard, and we will be displaying that in a couple months. We will also be updating our Vision Zero action plan this new fiscal year, so that's really exciting. And starting today, we will be starting our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant coordination, and this will be on a quarterly basis where we will have all of the Safe Streets and Roads for All awardees share their progress on their Vision Zero action plan, and all of the potential applicants to share any issues that they have and how we can all work together to try to, get to that goal. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I can take any questions at this time.
Ruth, do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Does anyone on the committee have comments for Valentina? Some of this will be later when we talk about Safe Streets. Nope. Okay, So then the next item, we want to move on, is Vision 2050 project prioritization. And Nathan George will provide an overview of the approach for the LRTP project prioritization. And Nathan is the Long Range Transportation Plan Coordinator.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Nice to see you all. So I'm excited to talk with you today about the Long Range Transportation Plan projects. This is a really exciting next step in the process, and we didn't have time to go through this presentation yesterday, so you guys get an unfiltered preview of what this would have looked like yesterday without the rehearsal. So we're here to talk about projects. We had a call for projects, so I'll walk you through a little bit of how we've taken that information and used that to create a lot of information that we're sharing with the public. We have information posted in the back, so I'd encourage everybody, if you have opportunity to stay behind and chat with us after, please do so. But we're going to talk about project identification and screening, our prioritization process that we've undertaken so far, and then the upcoming public and stakeholder outreach that we'll be conducting. Reminder on our timeline, this is a 2-year update process for those of you who are new. Welcome to the very quick journey that we'll be concluding at the end of the year. We're entering our project, basically the funding and programming portion of the project. Budget and implementation is what we have there for the summer, working towards a December adoption. Reminder that we're here working through this planning process. This is really the establishment of our priorities. These are the projects you'll see in our long range plan that get funded. So for those of you who may be new to the process, we opened a call for projects. We went out to our localities and our transportation providers and the state DOT and said, what do you want to fund in this plan? We closed that call for projects in December of last year. We had 17 responding agencies with over 550 projects. Basically, what is a local call for projects? You all understand what needs are in your community. The staff that work at your cities, municipalities, they understand what they need. And then that call for projects was their submission to us, what we're calling local desires. So that's how we've captured that information and put it into our data. And we're here today to talk about candidate projects. So as we're considering what we're going to fund in a long range plan, we can't fund it all. This is a fiscally constrained document. So we have to whittle down what is going to have the maximum impact. If we spend $1, where is it going to have impact? So we have screened projects to identify candidates. I'm sure a lot of folks will be interested to hear more about that and to learn more. Send an email to our technical advisory committee so we can walk through a little bit more of the background. But basically, we talked last year about goals and objectives and strategies. We've taken all the projects and screened them by our strategies. The projects that deliver on these strategies get points. As we accumulate the points, we get a score. So we checked all the projects that we received, that 550 plus projects, established scores for each of them, and then took all the projects that achieved a score of 8 points or higher. So that doesn't consider did it accomplish points across every goal area. And as a reminder, our goals are safe, efficient, connected, multimodal, and resilient. So it doesn't consider did you fail to check any of these boxes. It's just did you check 8 points or more across your entire project. That just allows us to identify those top priorities. And so this is a flow chart. Ted, I will try to describe this for you to the best of my ability. But a flow chart that explains how this whole process works together, because it's really complicated. Tried to distill it down in a really easy way. So we start with multimodal needs. That's everything, the universe of possibilities that we could invest in transportation in our region. The local desires, that's what we receive from everybody as a project submission. We don't have local desires for every need in our region. So just an acknowledgement there of everything we got. I'm calling this 631 projects. Of those, we have 470 that have been left behind right now as local desires. They didn't achieve that high score. Of the projects that we did screen and get a score of 8, we have 161 candidate projects. Those are the projects that are currently presented in our mapping that we're going to take out to the public and say, these are the projects we're considering for funding. That doesn't mean they're funded, doesn't mean they won't fall back into local desire status. But those are the ones that have the best alignment, that have the best chance to get into Vision 2050. So we work through that process. Then there's a parallel step. As we start documenting Vision 2050, our long-range transportation plan, we're working with our stakeholders, so our committees, our board, members who make decisions on how funding gets spent. So FDOT has a very important role there to establish what's going to be funded. That's our committed projects. We have the vision or our long-range plan that we are currently working on. The 2045 LRTP has a lot of committed projects. We're adding new projects, so we'll commit new funding to some projects. And then projects that are really well aligned and we don't have funding, they'll be called illustrative projects. So these will be priorities, but we don't have funding to build them. So we'll put those in the plan as illustrative. And so the division there is Vision 2050, prioritized projects by TPA will be illustrative or committed, and everything else will be acknowledged in the document for transparency. So hopefully we can talk about that a little more if there are questions, but want to explain the process. In terms of how we're going to take this information out to the public, how we're going to solicit input from stakeholders and anybody who has interest, we've developed an interactive project map. There's a GIS-based tool, allows you to look around the county and see where these projects are. It's got the same symbology we'll have in our print maps, but basically our illustrative projects, our committed projects, our candidates, and our local desires are all there for review. Our interactive map provides a great way that you can interact with that data, turn things on and off, and review everything around the county, see more information. And then we're using several tools that I'll highlight for you, but public input tools for the public, so we can solicit input. Few critical caveats for everybody who represents a municipality or transportation provider is TPA support. And I alluded to this in the flow chart. So having a project as committed or illustrative is how we will demonstrate that the TPA supports a project for receipt of federal and state funding. So that's effectively us saying we have reviewed that project, we agree with it, we want to make sure it's a priority, even if we don't have funding, it's illustrative, it's supported. Everything else is not supported. That does not mean that a project is not worthy of receiving those funds in the future. It's just an acknowledgement that we can't screen and prioritize every project, all the additional 470. So those will remain as local desires. As communities, you can work on delivering those projects with your local funds. You can check off some of the boxes that maybe make them not good candidates to include in this plan. So going through some additional planning efforts, or some of those are identified as discretionary opportunities that we can prioritize through the Transportation Alternatives Program, which is an annual funding program that the TPA administers. Handful of resources. So I already showed you the interactive map that's posted on our website, cross-linked 24/7. You go to the palmbeachtpa.org/LRTP and you click the first button you see there, the comment map, and that's live. We also have project maps in the back of the room today. We have the countywide maps that you can review. All of these projects are identified, and we've split those up by project type. So we have projects that were identified based on how they would address needs, things like complete streets and emerging technology. So we have everything broken down by project type, and then below that is it a candidate or a local desire? So those materials are posted in the back of the room. We'll be posting updates with small areas that support our upcoming outreach. So that'll be North, Central, South, and West County. So we divided it up into 4 areas for mapping. There are project information sheets. So basically this big GIS database, we can take all that information and feed it into a 1-page summary that will go into the report. A major focus of mine with developing this plan is to ensure that there's transparency. We're going to provide as much documentation so those local desires are available for future consideration. If they don't make their way into the plan, I want to ensure everybody there's that opportunity to continue working on planning and supporting those projects getting funded if that's something that your agency or community desires. The big ask today, this is not something that we as staff or we as the TPA can do independently. Want to encourage everybody to engage with these tools yourselves, but also tell your neighbors, get folks out to come and talk with us at these workshops, or have them take a look at the online resources. We have an upcoming series of meetings at the end of this month that will slightly trickle into July throughout the county. So we're going to be in 6 different locations that I have up on the screen. Palm Beach, maybe if you go to the palmbeachtpa.org LRTP page, you'll see our community workshops there. But want to encourage everybody to tell your neighbors, get them out, have them come and talk with us. because input is incredibly important. We don't hear from folks, we just don't know. And this is, as I said, just want to highlight for everybody how this tool is going to work. So the interactive map has two tools. You click on a project with the review a project button. It'll bring up some basic information about that project. You can see what's proposed, who proposed it, what's the current status of the project. And then you can demonstrate your support. I support a project, yes, or I don't support a project, no, and leave a comment. We're not asking for anybody's information. This just gives us an assessment of what's the public sentiment for a project. Is it supported or not? If a project's not supported, clearly, if we're thinking about funding it, we need to pause and see, are we proposing an appropriate investment of dollars or not? Maybe that should require us to reassess what's been proposed. If it's supported and there's a great amount of support, sounds like we've got a really great idea. Let's get that funded. For projects that, you know, if you get in and you say, oh, I don't see a project in my neighborhood, I really wanted to see something invested in here, we've created a tool, Something's Missing. It's basically our comment map. We've added some features in that survey so we can capture different themes and hopefully identify if there may be project needs that were not identified by our partners. So the public has that tool. We also have a stakeholder tool that if you are a municipality, you can submit additional project ideas that way as well. So that concludes the presentation. I want to say thank you. Happy to answer any questions. And again, encourage you to speak with us after if you're interested in reviewing projects. Thanks.
Ruth, are there any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Does anybody have any comments? Mr. Bruce, you're the only Bruce now, so I
Oh,
get that straight. I don't know, he left. The other Bruce left. Yeah, so, Mr. Bruce.
Just a question out of curiosity. You indicated at the beginning of your presentation that you all tried to identify the projects that have the greatest impact. In a summary, how do you determine what may have the greatest impact?
Sure, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So the TPA is, as a federal MPO designated agency, is required to report on performance-based planning and programming is what the Fed calls it. So we have these performance measures that we track and report annually, and we've embedded that into our goals, objectives, and strategies, and effectively just into policy. So as we're considering how a project's going to support the region, we're also looking at how it will support that performance. So to take that conversation and talk about a project specifically, that would be like as we're considering projects that we traditionally have talked about, like roadway capacity and how can we improve moving cars through a system. Our system performance goal is travel time reliability. And so how we would use our policy to align projects with that is to consider how will projects improve travel time performance. So is a project proposed where we see poor travel time performance, where it's going to improve a known problem? That's one way we've tracked it. Another way is looking at systematic enhancements. So things like setting up connected vehicle technology, making investments in that way so it supports travel time reliability systematically. Those are two specific, like very specific examples of how we've looked at projects and how our policy is built to support improved performance on an annual basis is what we're really here to do. What the Fed has really charged us as an agency to do is to ensure that our investments actually make some kind of change and they're not just politically driven. Thanks for the question.
I just had a quick question. So what happened to our comments when we did that little workshop? Where did they get memorialized and how are they part of this process?
Yeah, so we're working with our consultant team right now to get an updated needs plan that will be reported in the document. So basically we looked at needs as all of those project types that I had highlighted a couple slides ago, bicycle, pedestrian, transit, so on. And so we've taken those comments, shared it with the consultant team, had staff-driven comments, shared that with them as well. And that's a data-driven process to say, here are the greatest needs across the region. So that's something that we'll be reporting back at a committee meeting, probably, I'm hoping next month. That's my goal. So we can show you the update from what we heard in March. And then that will be in the draft materials that come, come before everybody as we're getting ready to adopt the plan. So you'll see what that updated needs plan looks like.
So if anybody on this committee made comments and it didn't get included, we come see you.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that you'll hear from me consistently is that this is a data-driven process. So if somebody says, I want to see a trail somewhere and it's not supported by data, we will have to have one-on-one dialogue to talk about why there's been an expressed desire that the data doesn't support it. Which that could be like, it's in my trail plan for the example that I just shared. But we will have that information available for everybody to review. And just a reminder that, we need to make sure that everything's tied down to data.
Okay, so then if a municipality wants something really bad, bring our data.
I'd say if a
I'm
municipality,
just trying to get
yeah,
to
if a
the
municipality
understanding of
wants
how
something,
we get something in there.
that should be reflected as a local desire or as a project, if it makes
Understand.
its way through that process. So if it's, if somebody's asking for something that's project-based, it should be reflected in our project list, even if
Gotcha.
it's only a local desire. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Gonna move to the next item. What is our next item? Oh, yeah, Safe Streets and Roads for All. Grant coordination, and this is again Valentina, and she'll be going through the grant awardees and potential applicants.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So before we get onto this item, I just want to briefly mention that Ted and I will be walking to Clematis as soon as this meeting is over. So anybody is welcome to join us at Clematis after hopefully 12. Okay. So as you all know, we will be starting coordination for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. So today is the first day, and for today, this will be a quick, just a quick updates. But starting at the next meeting in July, we will be asking committee members to formally provide their updates via a presentation. So Christian, thank you for volunteering, being the first volunteer. So Christian will be providing a presentation to us in July. And actually, I'll just ask now if anyone would like to volunteer for the September meeting, because again, we don't have any meetings in August. So we have a break in August. Would anyone like to volunteer for September? County, maybe, Potty, Boca.
I'm sorry, can you please use your microphone?
We haven't selected a consultant yet.
Okay.
So if you push it later on, then we'll have more stuff to report on.
Okay,
But if there's no one else, I mean, we can provide an update.
okay. What about Boca, maybe?
I can ask Naresh if he wants to come in and do a presentation. I can ask Naresh if he wants to do a presentation.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
may I? Brian Reacher, Deputy Director of Multimodal, and I would also recommend, it does not have to be specifically about your grant. If you have a street corridor visioning project, or you want to present on a recently completed and constructed project with safety elements, or a safety study that's recently been completed, these are things that we are interested in hearing more about. As we learned from our partners in Broward, they have used construction funds to match Safe Streets and Roads for All projects. So that is how they're going about getting their planning and their construction funding for projects that are coming up. And we're interested in learning more about how we can utilize and leverage one another's efforts to really help open some of the doors for funding in the future, especially as the communities that are starting. And I appreciate Christian agreeing to present. They're actually taking their Vision Zero action plan to adoption within the next month or two. I believe I just attended the last community meeting in Wellington last month. So if there are elements that we would like to hear about, that's fine. One of the things that the staff are going to be working on moving forward is kind of the status update with a table for all of the different communities and where you are in your Vision Zero action grant. So Valentina will be working on that. And if we don't have a willing presenter victim for September, we will at least start with that. And then we can maybe talk about having either a special presentation or hopefully at that point, we'll at least have some community meetings planned that the grant awardees can report on in September. So stay tuned. We'll continue to work on the September agenda, but for now, thank you, Christian, for volunteering for July.
And to those that have not attended the previous meetings, just to give a little bit of context, the Federal Highway Administration established this new funding program called the Safe Streets and Roads for All Grant, and that was back in 2021 under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And this new discretionary funding program has $5 billion in appropriate funds over the next 5 years from 2022 to 2026. So that's why we are really trying to get everyone to take advantage of this opportunity because it's until 2026 and we're already in 2024. So, and this is to fund a comprehensive safety action plan with supplemental activities and also for implementation funds. So if we could please go around the room and if anyone can briefly just share the updates. I know that some of you may be seeking out those grants. So if you can provide an update, even if just a quick update, we would appreciate it.
Should we start over here with Palm Beach County Parks and Recreation, Casey?
Hey there, I'm just going to be permanently filling in for Jean Matthews and thank you for having me. I don't have an update at this time.
Yeah, no worries. It's mostly for the ones that have been already awarded the grant and the potential applicants. I believe I've been in coordination with Mosey from the city of Boynton Beach. I don't know, Craig, if you've been in coordination, any updates?
No, I haven't been in coordination with him. But Mosey should be at the next meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We got $4 million.
Yay.
That's all I got on Naresh's hand on all that stuff.
Okay.
Guess I'll be next. So yes, the Village of Wellington did receive the Safe Streets for All grant in the fiscal year of 2022 to 2023. We did actually have a consultant do the application, but I did briefly review it. It doesn't seem too difficult to tackle. So I do encourage everyone to just at least briefly review it. From then, we did solicit bids for the action plan itself. A engineering firm from California, and also they have a branch here in Vero. They pretty much taken on the entire action plan draft. I would say the biggest challenge for us would have been the public engagement when it came to the public comment period. But the benefit is our task force team. We had a lot of participation. I mean, we have everyone from the school board, the senior advisory committee, public safety, firefighters to, I mean, everyone was pretty much involved and I was part of that task force. We did receive a lot of great feedback from that, and from that feedback and comment, we were able to draft the action plan, and it was pretty much close to adoption. So
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
How much was your grant for?
I don't recall. Our village engineers actually took on the initiative of taking on the entire action plan. So planning didn't really have too much involvement with it, but I can get back with you, and I'll actually during our next meeting I can put that into
Okay.
the slide.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anybody else want to share? what's going on?
You know, I want to give a quick update. Again, we haven't started our project because we haven't selected our consultant, hopefully this month. We have a meeting later on in June. You know, working with federal government is different than working with DOT and other agencies. So it was a significant learning process for us. Especially we have to work with, we have the commission to approve it. And if there's any change in the wording, then it has to go back to the commission. So kind of we wasted a lot of time, but now we feel like we understand much better the process. I'm planning to meet with Naresh to understand. I mean, I think we still have an option by August, I believe, to submit something for demonstration project or supplemental. So we're hoping we can submit something about that too.
Okay. And I have a question for the city of Boca, Tracy. If you know, if you don't, that's okay. You can get back to me. But I was under the impression that you could not apply for, again, if you've already been awarded those funds until your action plan was already adopted. So I was just curious how the city applied. If you know, if you don't, that's okay.
Our stuff is, I think, I'm not gonna answer because I don't know. I
Okay.
think we did demo, you can do demo stuff of some kind, but I've been completely out of the loop for this money we just got.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I did check on that. We're allowed to apply for demo or supplemental.
Just for demo, okay.
Yeah, the only thing we cannot apply is implementation.
Mhm.
But I think you know, they're awarding big amount for demo and for supplemental, so there's a lot of opportunities there.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, if there are there any other updates? If not, then we'll wrap up.
Oh, I had some just general questions because we haven't done any significant work yet related to our Vision Zero action plan. But I mean, it seems to me that we need to get a grant in order to do the plan. And then given our workload, we probably need to get money to get somebody to help us submit it because we've got all these other grants that we're doing and all of our other work. So it's just like a process of like how much did you guys, Body, did you get money to do your Vision Zero action plan?
Yes, but we haven't started the process yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're just looking at how we might structure it, and before we even bring it to any elected officials, you know, we need to have a better understanding, our staff have to have a better understanding of how we might look at an action plan, whether or not we want to, like, for example, I'm looking at doing it for our community redevelopment agency and doing safe streets because that's our inlet village, our river walk, our sun trail, our, you know, our walkable streets along the beaches and things like that. But I'm thinking, well, does it make sense for us to do it, you know, on a larger basis and, you know, or should we do a different plan, you know? So it's, you know, I'm really in the infancy of that and just, you know, in order to use this group as the jumping off starting point, it's, I think, important to understand how other people are doing that. So this is great.
Go ahead.
Stephanie, one more time, Brian, Deputy Multimodal. We should definitely talk offline about how we can help you with that application. There's, just for the committee's sake, the last planning and demonstration grant award cycle for this year will be in August. We're aware of at least Juno Beach applying for Safe Streets and Roads for All for the most recent May round. So we're excited for them. We're hopeful for them. We wrote them a letter of support. We can help at all with the town of Jupiter, at least on a staff level. We'll certainly give you some guidance on that and how you can structure your application in the geography that it should cover.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. So if there are no further updates, then we can move on. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. So the next is administrative items 4A through C are informational only, and there'll be no staff presentation unless requested. Are there any other public comments on these items which are the governing board summary points from May 16th, the FDOT scheduling report? And then the last item is our next meeting in July.
No, Madam
Anybody
Chair.
else? Before we adjourn, our next meeting is July 11th. And is that at 9 or 9:30?
9:30.
9:30. Are we to 9:30 now? We're
Correct.
doing 9:30 now? So everybody remember that. Remember that, Mr. Bruce. All right. So, um, wait, it says next meeting is July 11th, then it's, okay, never mind. July 11th. It is June and it has been a long week. So thank you, everybody.